Welcome back to the Michigan Football Network. And as always, it is Wednesday night at 6 p.m., and we are here to talk some ball, I should say. With that being said, though, today we are going to start the show off with our college talk. Last week we did a big NFL segment, but that was, the trade deadline and all that stuff's going on. So, got to start with the big news. But today we're going to start off with college. And with that being said, Michigan football takes on Northwestern this week at Northwestern. They are 11.5 point favorites as of right now. Personally, I think that's a bit much. Look, man, I know Michigan is a good team. Don't get me wrong, but 11.5 points to a team that they might be 5-4, but I mean they're playing pretty solid football, and they are currently the 21st scoring defense and 33rd overall defense. They are 21st against the pass, but 64th against the run. And now, obviously, these numbers are going to sound kind of skewed based on some of the numbers we throw around on here with the NFL. In the NFL, there's only 32 teams, so if you're like 12th, it's like that's pretty good. But if you're like 21st, it's like you're in the bottom of the league, like bottom half of the league. However, in college, I would say if you're in the top 100, that's pretty decent. I mean, it depends on what school we're talking about and all those things. Like if it's Georgia and they're 99th in offense, we
Yeah.
got a problem. But when it comes to teams like Northwestern being, 21st in scoring defense and what was it, 33rd in total defense, that's pretty damn good for a school like them. With that being said, I do think that's going to cause Michigan some issues. So I don't really see the 11.5 point favorite. Obviously, it seems like every team besides maybe Central Michigan this year that we were supposed to just blow the doors off, we barely beat them. I mean, we beat Purdue last week by 5, or 2 weeks ago now by 5 points. And I don't remember how many points we were favored, but I would guess it was around the 11.5 to 14 area,
Which game was
somewhere.
that?
The Purdue Michigan game.
I
I
thought it was
can't.
more than that, to be honest.
It could
But
have been, and
yeah,
that's my point. It's like the lines they put on these games for Michigan, I just don't get it. I think it's the hype of Bryce Underwood and all that, but I think they've shown this year that they're not really necessarily worth the hype,
it was
unfortunately.
it was a 21 point line versus
Okay,
Purdue.
and we won by 5. So
Yep.
I mean that's
We did
exactly
not
what I.
cover.
No, not even close.
I'm like I think it was 20 something, but I'm like before I look ridiculous and say that, let me double check. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's no surprise. I mean, it's Purdue. They're not playing that great this year, but they hung in there with Michigan, and obviously the final score is a little skewed too because it wasn't a very close game if we're being honest. But they do not ever even get close to covering the spread when they're playing these
Yeah.
teams they should blow out. So with that being said, I would not bet on that. I would not bet on Michigan to cover. I would probably bet on Northwestern to cover, but even then, I wouldn't feel too good about it. So I'd probably leave that one alone myself. But with that being said, it could definitely be a tough game. They've got a really solid rushing attack. They are in the top 40 in the country in running the ball. Or I'm sorry, they're 41st, I believe. Now that I'm looking at that. 41st in the country running the ball is not bad if you're Northwestern. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, it's going to be tough because, like I said, they run the ball well, and their quarterback is. I'm not going to say he's awesome or anything, but he's got experience. He started 4 years at SMU before coming over here. So, it's not going to be a cakewalk, is my point. And I feel like at this point, Michigan fans are kind of prepared for that. We're ready for, things that should be blowouts ended up being close games, and games that should be close, we probably are going to lose. That's what it kind of seems like this year. All the good teams we seem to lose to, and all the bad teams we seem to barely beat, which is not a good sign if you're trying to be a powerhouse in college football. Obviously, it's year one with the new head coach, so we'll see how it goes. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on Michigan Northwestern?
Yeah, I do think Michigan will win, and um I want to say soundly, but I don't want to make it sound like a blowout because I do think it's going to be closer. I do think Northwestern covers that 11 and a half. but I don't think it's going to be a nail biter. I don't think it's going to come down to a last second field goal or anything like that. Um, Kind of like the Purdue game. I don't see, unless Michigan just has an absolutely terrible game, I don't really see how Michigan loses this game as a whole. But I don't think we're going to come in there and dominate like we probably should. Like, to be honest, I saw someone post on Twitter today, like, how do you feel that Michigan is now ranked 18th? And I'm like, to be honest, the way
We
we've
shouldn't
looked,
be
I think that's
ranked.
a little high.
We shouldn't be ranked at all, in my
Like,
opinion.
we have a pretty good ground game, obviously. We have a pretty good defense, but as I said the last 2 weeks, I'm like, Bryce Underwood hasn't really developed as fast as I would like. I'm not giving up on the kid, but I thought it would be like a week by week where you keep noticing the steps, and
Hmm.
I haven't really seen that. So, I guess I'm not, gonna, say we need a new quarterback or anything, but it's not as sunshine and rainbows as I thought it was going to be at this point. But yeah, I do have Michigan winning, and I mean that's that.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Michigan wins for sure. I would say the score is going to be something like, I want to say like 20-13. Like it's not going to be a very
I
fun to
am pretty
watch.
much right there. Yep, I'm right
Like
there.
we are not going to be able to throw the ball too well, I don't think, because we've struggled all season. And like I said, Northwestern has a pretty good pass defense. I do think we'll be able to run the ball though, and I think we could have another pretty good game from Jordan Marshall. Obviously, he had a huge game last week in that Purdue win. So, with that being said, I do think Michigan wins, but I think it's going to be close. I could see about a touchdown. I don't know if I see much more than that, though. But with that being said, moving on to Michigan State, because that's kind of the big story in the news right now. I don't know if you guys are on Twitter or not. I assume you are, based on the fact that you're watching us. But if you are on Twitter, you have seen this already. But with that being said, we have to talk about it either way. Mel Tucker got in, well, I almost said posthumously, but he's not dead. His career just is. It's like,
It
uh,
was before this even too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like he's kind of already dead and gone in terms of Michigan State, but he's bringing back some bad juju right now. So basically, what happened is Mel Tucker was caught, for lack of a better way to say it. I don't know if you'd call it caught because they didn't catch him when it was actually happening, but he was caught doing some recruiting mishaps, essentially playing ineligible players based on the fact that they recruited them illegally. Not exactly sure what all the details are on that. I haven't really seen too much going super far into it, but that's the gist right now is that he recruited some players illegally, and that's why they vacate wins from three different seasons, 2022,
Yep.
2023, and 2024,
Yep.
simply because they had ineligible players on the roster playing in the game. It is that simple, guys. I mean, there's no, cheating scandal in terms of on the field necessarily, like quote unquote Michigan scandal. But this is like it's cut and dry. He cheated to get recruits, and they played, and now the games are vacated. Now, with that being said, though, Jonathan Smith, because I've heard a lot of people talking about Jonathan Smith's involvement in this, there is none. From what I understand, there is no involvement from Jonathan Smith. The only reason that they are vacating the wins from his MSU career is because those same players were still on the roster, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. I feel like that's one of those things that like you probably should have figured out as Jonathan Smith, like, hey man, is this guy actually eligible to play or what? Because that is not a good look on him either way. Now, with that being said, the Michigan State freaking boat just continues sinking. That's where we're at right now, man. And it honestly brings me no joy to say that as a Michigan fan. Like, as we know on this show, we're both Michigan fans. I mean, we talk about Michigan a whole hell of a lot more than Michigan State as of right now. But I don't like to see this. Personally, because not only does it affect, Jonathan Smith, their current coach, it affects the players on that roster, whether it be, that are on the roster currently or were on the roster when it was going on. It's never nice to know that your wins didn't count. Even though one guy was playing and was ineligible or whatever the case, it still kind of sucks from a player's perspective. Like, man, we basically never won a college football game in our career, if you think about it that way. I mean, that's a whole player's career nowadays. So, with that being said, though, I just don't know what Michigan State's going to do to turn this around to make this season positive. I mean, it has been rough and rough and more rough all the way through Michigan State's year. Whether it be, I feel like they were kind of excited coming into the season. Like it seemed like they thought, oh, we might actually be decent this year, and those expectations kind of killed them because they are not very good, and the fans are pissed. Aiden Childs did not live up to what he was supposed to be as a transfer. I still think he's a good player. I think he should transfer somewhere else and get, be put in a spot where he's going to succeed. I do think Aiden Childs could be a Sunday player still. Obviously we're not quite sure on that right now, but I think he's got the talent if he goes somewhere with a little bit better coaching, a little bit better scheme for him. He could definitely do pretty well. So, before we get into the Penn State game, what are your thoughts on the scandal?
I am very glad you asked, Chase. I have been beaming like the Grinch who stole Christmas for the last 2 hours because, unlike you, which is fine, I take immense pleasure in this scandal for being a very, I'll just say, strong Michigan fan and someone who's been defending them for years on Twitter and have been having arguments over the hammer that is going to be coming for 3 years from Ohio State and Michigan State fans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the hammer's coming. Wait until the hammer comes. You got the hammer, not us. So thank you for that. Thank you for playing ineligible players. I've seen so many people say what Michigan did was worse when it's not. Sign stealing, which Michigan did, is not illegal. Just the way they kind of did it is.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State flat played ineligible players. Like in the game, the NCAA has forever vacated wins when you play ineligible players. It happened with the Ohio State tattoo scandal and all that. If
Mm-hmm.
you play ineligible players, you're gonna get got. I mean, it's
Yeah.
period. It's copy paste, cut and dry. It's not about oh well, Michigan did that. Case by case. Like I posted on Twitter. I know it's obviously leaving the sports world, but can you imagine if a judge just said, "Oh, like I can't send this guy in front of me to jail for tax evasion because the last case I had, I just did that." Like, no, it's
Mm-hmm.
case by case, man. So, um, I just I do wish better moving forward for Michigan State, but I will absolutely relish this moment and the fact that Michigan State's been trying to come after Michigan. Michigan State fans have been trying to come after Michigan fans for so long
Mm-hmm.
about a hamburger or a sign or, for example, the which I mean, I will say Connor Stallions on the CMU sideline is weird, but that's actually one of the games that gets vacated. So,
True.
um, in retrospect, I don't know if they can go back and unpunish Connor Stallions. Don't get me wrong, he still did wrong, but now that game technically didn't happen. So, was he ever there in the first place?
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, no, he shouldn't be unpunished, but that's just tongue in cheek. He still did wrong. But moving forward, like you said with Childs, there was a lot of hype around him, and I kind of understand it because, like you said, he is a good player. He has talent. It just quite hasn't worked out with him there. And between the scandal, between the hype in this season kind of not working out the way MSU fans and program expected it to, um, with Childs saying he doesn't really care about the fans and what they think, like the whole year has just been a complete circus. So
Mm-hmm.
like this was kind of just the cherry on top. It was a pretty ugly season on and off the field anyways. And then the one thing I will also like to mention about Coach Smith, and you are correct, he personally, to my knowledge, did nothing wrong. He inherited illegal players and then played them. So maybe he knew, maybe he didn't. I don't know what he knows or doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of came into a bad situation. But as we mentioned on past podcast, Michigan State fans have been asking for his head and wanting him fired for a couple weeks.
Hmm.
I'm curious on with him now having violations and vacated wins under his reign, even if it was inherited or not, could this be some sort of contract violation and could they be able to fire him with cause and just get out from it? I flat out do not know. I don't know if they can or can't, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's something if Michigan State was looking into it. Because once again, just because the fans want him gone doesn't mean he was potentially going to be fired. But if Michigan State was on the fence about him, I wonder if this is a way they can kind of get out of that and not have a LSU situation where you got to pay out 50 some million to fire your coach. So I am just curious about that aspect. I'm curious on where the chips fall in this. But with that being said, I'm ready to move on to their is Penn State, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, their Penn State game. So I'll kick it back to you for that.
Yeah, so actually, before we move on, you brought up some good points. So the thing that I want to say is they could potentially argue that Jonathan Smith did technically have some malpractice, or like you said, fire him for cause because of that. However, I'm just not convinced that they would be able to get away with it. Because at this point, it's like you said, or like we both said at this point, it's like he didn't really have anything to do with it. Like the recruiting aspect was what was illegal.
Yeah.
The only reason the wins were vacated is because due to the recruiting being illegal, those players were ineligible. The odds that Jonathan Smith knew how these kids were recruited, in my opinion, was very low. The real thing that I'm looking at is their general manager, right? Because they fired Saeed Khalif, which was the guy who was actually involved with this whole situation, but they fired him back in 2022.
Oh
So this
wow.
new guy they hired, who is their current general manager, Cole Moore, was hired in 23. So my question is, what years did the the illegal recruitment take place? Was it just 22, and then it's just so happened there was the guy on the roster for all the seasons, or was it Mel Tucker did it every year, and that's why it's such a big deal? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
that
I feel like
information at this time is just not out because it might
right,
have even been 21
right.
because then it wasn't vacated until they played in 22, 23, and so on.
Right. Exactly. So we don't really know enough right now at this moment. But I would also say I would be looking into their general manager if Mel Tucker was able to operate the same way. Because think about it, man. Like, if they fired their general manager because he was allowing Mel Tucker to operate that way, and then they bring a new guy in and he's still letting him do it, that guy right now needs to get fired, in my opinion. Now we don't, like I said, we don't know all the information. But with that being said, if Michigan State fires Jonathan Smith without cause, his payout would be approximately $33.3 million as of December 2025. So, November, December. It's probably a little bit more even, with that being said. So it's just one of those things, really, that is just such an odd situation. And I think if I were MSU and if I did want to fire Smith, I would definitely look into that. I just don't personally think they'll uh, get what they want in the court in that way.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I don't even know if MSU, like I said, I know fans want to. I don't know if MSU
Hmm.
even wants to fire out. I was just bringing it up as a talking point to say, like, if
Hmm.
MSU wanted to fire him, then can they do it with cause?
For sure.
But yeah, I don't know if would sit here today and even, obviously I'm a Michigan fan, but I don't know if I can sit here today and be like, oh, they should because of, like, I don't.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is even before this, I mean, I'm not going to sit here, I'm going to be honest. I've not watched every Michigan State football game this year. Not going to lie to
I've
you.
watched one and a half,
I
so
mean, s- I, I was going to say I went to one, but no, I didn't. I would, that would
you
be a
just go to
lie. That
every
was
other college.
true. I went to one last year towards the end of the season against Rutgers. So I think that's what I was thinking of. But point being, I don't necessarily think they should fire him right now. But again, I haven't really. It's not like
It's
I'm
only
watching every game to sit here and really make a decision on that either way.
No,
So
there's only 3 games left, isn't it 3?
I think 2. Yeah, 3, 3,
You? I'm like,
3.
to me, even if you do want to fire him, like, let him play out it's 3 weeks,
Yeah,
whatever.
you might as well wait. And the only reason that, see, this is my problem, right? The only reason I don't think they're going to fire him is because they haven't yet. Because, in my opinion, if you're a college football team and you know that this guy is not your guy, you just get rid of him because there's a whole staff underneath him. Someone will enter him. You know what I mean? It's like, especially if it's a culture issue. Now, if it's a coaching thing, like, oh, he doesn't call the right plays or whatever, then you might hold on to him just because, to let the year go on without having to do all that. But if it's a culture issue, if this guy talks to the players wrong or whatever, something like that, you have to get rid of him because it's like a cancer. The quicker you get rid of that tumor, the better. But with that being said, moving on to the Penn State Michigan State game, I do think Michigan State has a chance, if I'm being honest with you. Obviously, Penn State came into the year highly ranked, highly touted. They were a team that everybody thought was, I mean, dude, their 2 running backs went back because they thought they'd have a chance at winning the fucking Natty. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like now they're on a 6-game losing streak, and they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten as of right now with Michigan State. With that being said, excuse me. Penn State is favored by 7.5 points. Now, I kind of get that, with Penn State's pedigree and things like that. Michigan State has not been playing much better than Penn State has. However, I'm a little surprised, if I'm being honest with you, because the fact that Penn State's lost 6 in a row, and matter of fact, I'm going to look up their schedule just to see exactly who they've lost to, because that adds context, especially in college football. I mean, in the NFL, if you lost 6 in a row, you're pretty fucked. Whereas in
I,
college football, it's like you might have played a lot of really good
I will
teams.
say I did watch their game last week, and they took Indiana, who's currently ranked number 2, down to the wire. Like they
Yeah.
were beating Indiana, and Indiana had to make an outrageous catch. Sorry, I don't know the
Hmm.
player's name to give him credit, but if it wasn't for an absolutely outstanding catch, I'd even say maybe catch of the year,
Yeah. Oh,
Penn State
yeah.
would have upset number 2. So
That
while they
might be
are
one
on
of the
a
best catches ever, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I'm like, so while they are on a 6-game losing streak and haven't looked great, I mean, they also lost their starting quarterback, who personally I do think he was overrated, but I mean, there was a reason he was starting. So obviously he is the best option there. Um, so I'm not shocked after losing their starting quarterback that they kind of fell apart a little bit. As you mentioned, they still do have 2 good running backs. But I was actually really impressed. If it wasn't for the close game against Indiana, I would probably pick MSU.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
but
valid too, and that's kind of why I'm thinking like it makes sense that MSU is, or I'm sorry, PSU is a 7.5 point favorite in this game because realistically they should win, and mainly because of like what you just said with Indiana. But looking at their schedule, their losses, I mean, aren't against bad teams. Funnily enough, they lost to Northwestern by 1 point, Oregon, UCLA, Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana. Those are all pretty good teams with pretty good programs. Obviously, UCLA and Northwestern, and I would even say Iowa are a little bit on the lower scale of D1 programs, but those are still pretty good teams. So I'm not, and I mean they lost to Iowa by 1 point. They
yeah,
lost to
Iowa
Northwestern
was
by
one
one
point
point.
and
North
Northwestern was 1 point. So
Right. And Penn State, or I'm sorry, UCLA was 5 points. So they're not getting blown out by anybody. And even Ohio
Indiana
State,
3.
right. And even Ohio
Yeah.
State, it was 38-14. So obviously that's the biggest loss of the whole thing, but that's to the number 1 team in the nation. So like I said, I think Michigan State has a chance. However, I do think Penn State wins this game. And I do think that the only way that Michigan State could win this game is if that new quarterback just kind of goes off. I mean, he had a pretty good game last week against Minnesota and they still lost. But if he even has a better game, they're really, in my opinion, their defense is what needs to step up right now, because it seems like that's kind of been the issue all season, um, other than when they played Michigan, of course. So that's great for us. Um, but with that being said, like I said, I do think Penn State wins, and I would not be surprised if they cover the spread. Uh, but with that being said, that is all for our college football talk for today. We will now move on to our Detroit Lions segment, which kind of a lot going on right now in Allen Park. We have a ton of injuries. We'll get to all the injuries in a second. But the big things right now are DJ Reed, Davenport, and Pascal are all back at practice. They opened their practice window, which is really good for the Lions, getting some much needed reinforcements as the season goes on. And then, of course, we also added Hassanin to the practice squad, which pretty cool story from him. Apparently, he told his agent that he was not interested in joining any team besides Detroit, which makes sense. I mean, he fits us like a glove, man. It sucked when he got hurt and we had to, cut him and give him a injury settlement, but it was also always kind of in the cards that we were going to re-sign him once he got healthy. So glad that he is healthy and he seems like he is probably ready to go, because at this point, I don't know if you really add a guy to the practice squad if he's not ready. You know what I mean? There was no reason to, because he told every other team that he didn't want to sign there. So I think he's going to be pretty much ready to go in the next week or two. We might even see him play. But again, it's just the practice squad, so I'm not really putting too much into that. But with that being said, before we move on, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add just a little bit on the Hassanine story. In I believe it was Justin Rogers. Sorry if I got it wrong, but I believe he mentioned that a team offered him not only a practice squad spot, but a spot on their 53, and he turned it down
Wow.
because he just wanted to be here. Also, as a part of Brad Holmes' genius, he is on the practice squad, but with I know I'm going to get some of these details wrong, a international
Oh
like
yeah.
waiver or something, so he does not actually take up yet a practice squad spot. So we basically added him for free. We didn't have to cut anyone, even a guy off the practice squad. So like you said, he should be pretty much good to go. I watched a couple workout videos of his like a month ago, so I know he's been, keeping in shape and whatnot. And like you said, he fits not only the Lions but Dan Campbell like a glove. I remember everyone remembers his draft
Hmm.
video, him crying on the phone saying he's willing to die on the field for us. And as you mentioned before, when we came to an injury settlement with him, like the next day, I think Campbell said that he'll be back. It was either Campbell or Holmes mentioned like he's not done with us or something like that. Like, but he was able to rehab off the roster and everything like that. So it's kind of just a roster balance kind of theatrics. But yeah, he's back and or at least back with the team. And as you mentioned, Davenport and Reed are starting to practice with us. And last week, I don't remember if it was just after the show or before the show, but on Wednesday it came out last week that Miles Frazier and Rodriguez were practicing and slash their windows are also opened. So
Hmm.
we have several, while we're dealing with several injuries, we have several guys coming back too. So it is nice this late in the season to get some cavalry coming in.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And really, the only injuries right now that we have that are like worrisome is Kirby Joseph and Terrion Arnold, which Terrion Arnold, got a concussion last week. So there's a chance he doesn't even play against the Eagles, which he did not practice today either. So not great. Probably doesn't. I would say he doesn't play. If I had to bet right now, I don't think he plays. And then Kirby Joseph for the same thing. He did not practice yet again. Again, I would bet he doesn't play again. I mean, we're looking at what is it, 4 weeks, 5 weeks in a row now that Kirby Joseph hasn't played. It's been a while
Is it
since
that
we've
long?
seen him. I mean, maybe because the bye week, it seems like it's been a little bit
I say
longer.
I'm like I thought it was 3 games. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, three games, 4 weeks sounds about
oh
right.
yeah, because the bye, yeah.
So, but point being that those are really the only two that we really have to worry about. I'm just going to go ahead and go down the practice report for today. So, Rodrigo was the only full participant out of these guys that are on the injury report still, which is a good sign for his, ramping up. DJ Reed, Jacob Sailors, Josh Pascal, Pat O'Connor, Graham Glasgow, Miles Frazier, Taylor Decker, Marcus Davenport were all limited participants, which means they're still kind of up in the air, I would assume. My guess is that Davenport, Frazier, and Pascal probably don't play on Sunday. I would be surprised if any of them do. Then the did not practice at all is Brock Wright, Sione Vaki, Panay Sewell, Sam Laporta, Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson, and Terrion Arnold. Okay. Now, I know I mentioned Terrion Arnold and Kirby Joseph are really the only ones I'm worried about. I mean that as in I'm worried they're not going to play. I do think Hutch, Laporta, Sewell will all play, and then Vaki and Wright. I mean, it'd be nice to have them, but it's not like you're losing Panay Sewell when those guys don't play. So it's still a bit of an injury riddled week for us right now as we go into Philadelphia, which is not the greatest week to be injury riddled. Obviously, they're one of the best teams that we're going to play all season, so it's going to be ears to the ground, hoping that we hear some good news here soon, especially about Kirby Joseph, because he's one of those guys that, like I said, we haven't had him for weeks, and when we do have him, he makes such a difference in that defensive backfield.
Absolutely. Definitely a game changer.
Yeah. And with that being said, though, we will move on to our keys against, our review of our keys against Washington. Last week, my keys were pressure the quarterback, no big plays on defense. And then on offense, need a good offensive game, run the ball, should be able to put up a lot of points, and we should be pissed from the losses last year and last week. I think it should be a blowout, and I had it 40-17 Lions, which I was pretty on point, I think, there. And looking at the statistics, we had an awesome offensive game. Overall, offensively, I guess we'll start there. 226 rushing yards, 320 passing yards, 546 total yards, 0 sacks. Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs were both kind of the stars of the game, and obviously Jared Goff had himself a really good game too. Goff had 320 and 3 touchdowns. Gibbs had 142 rushing yards and 2 tutties on 15 carries. It's 9.5 yards per carry, folks. And then David Montgomery had 15 for 71, which, by the way, I'm not going to mention who this was necessarily, but someone today that I was talking to told me that I wish I was joking, that the Lions need an elite running back. I was like, they what? They need an elite running back. As if we don't have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And they were like, well, Jahmyr Gibbs is just a big play, big run guy, but we have David Montgomery too. It just made no sense. I just thought that was hilarious. But point being, they both had a really good game, and then it was a Jameson Williams breakout day and game got stuck there. Oh, you're back. All right.
I was going to say, I'm just like, you were just building up saying like, oh, by the way, someone told me, and then my whole computer froze. And I'm just like, oh, come on, because I don't know what you're going to say.
So basically, long story short, what had happened was I was talking to a coworker today, and they told me that the Lions need an elite running back. They said the missing piece is an elite running back.
Okay, I
was like, what? And I was like, Jahmyr Gibbs exists. And they were like, well, he's not really elite. He's more of just like a big play guy.
Are big plays not elite?
Even then, though. I feel like if you watched the game, you would be like, no, that dude's elite. He he doesn't make more than what he should out of the play and all. And it's like, dude, when he goes for 80 yards, that's more than he should every time. Like, what? And I just thought it was funny because they were like, well, they need a guy who can just go in the middle of the field between the tackles and run the ball up the middle. And I said,
we have 2 of them.
David Montgomery exists.
Gibbs can even go in the middle too.
And it was just so funny because, I think honestly, without giving too much information, they're old, so I think they just look at it like smash mouth football, baby. We need a fullback in there. You know what I mean? Like, which we have. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. A little bit of a funny aside after I went off on how good our stats were as a team. But Jameson Williams. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, my bad. I was gonna say I do find it funny that quick footnote, side note, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a very religious person, but the fact that my feed cut out as you were about to mention that that your coworker said the Lions need a running back. I wonder if that was divine intervention to try
Yeah,
to save my ears and my head from hearing that.
very could very well be. And if so, God was looking out for you and not me,
Yeah, I was
brother.
gonna say
Because
I'm like I was so curious on what you were gonna say, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
um, yeah. But point being, Jamison Williams had a breakout game, I would say his best game of the season so far. 6 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown. Amon Ra had 5 for 58 and a touchdown. Sam Laporta had 5 for 53, and Khalif Raymond had 4 for 49, and then Gibbs added 30 receiving yards and a touchdown. Isaac Tesla got himself another catch for 11 yards. Personally, we need to use that kid more. I'm sorry, but like we should not have traded three third rounders for him as a Super Bowl team when he's not even gonna fucking play. Like I did not like the value when we did it, and I get it. He's raw, blah 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 blah. Why the fuck is Khalif Raymond playing so much over him? If he was worth all this shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, look, I love Khalif. I've been a Khalif guy since we added him way back in what 2020 at this point.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been a minute.
he's been a really solid piece for us. However, if we gave up so much value for this guy, mind you, we talked about it on the show last week. That's 3 Jalen Phillips, three, three,
Who we see on Sunday.
who we play on Sunday, for a guy who probably won't play on Sunday. I'm just, it blows my mind. And I get it. Listen, I get it. People are sitting here talking right now as they're watching. Well, it's because it's building for the future. And if you want to open your window and you want to keep it open, you got to build for the future. Great. Awesome. Will it fucking matter in 3 years if Jared Goff is not our quarterback? Probably fucking not. It won't matter because we're going to have to go find a quarterback and we won't have the extra third round picks. You know what I'm
Bryce
saying? It's just
Underwood.
like, oh, right. As if we're going to have the number one overall pick in 2 years.
If he keeps playing like this, we don't need it.
And we won't want him if he keeps playing like this. Damn it. He'll be a
Like we're not
seventh
gonna
round
need
pick.
that first.
No, he'll be like Quinn Ewers if that's the case, if he keeps playing like this. But point being, I'm not hating on the Tesla pick. I don't even think it was a bad pick at all, which I've said many times on the show. I do think, though, there is a better way to use certain resources, and I also think it should not have costed us that much to move up that far. I think he went out and was like, "This is what I'll give you," and the other GM was like, "Yes, please, turn it in, buddy." Like that just seems like it's like a fantasy football trade, right? When you get the notification and you go, "Did this guy mean to send this to me? Does he think he's the other team in this trade? Because what the fuck? You hit accept before you even ask any questions. Because I ain't gonna
Wasn't it
lose
the
that.
Jaguars that we traded with? Yes.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I just looked it up as I was talking. Yeah, it was the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they gave us Tesla, and thanks again for Hutch. Anytime I mention Jags, I gotta mention Hutch. But
True.
no, I hear what you're saying because the kid's got talent. Like anytime
Uh
we
huh.
do target him, he produces pretty much every time. Obviously, people will remember the week one catch. He had that one over the shoulder. It wasn't a touchdown, but over the shoulder, nice sideline catch. I think that was week two or three. He only had one target this game, but it was for 11 yards. So I mean, if you average 11 yards a catch, I can't complain. And I completely agree with you. But one of the parts, and I know you didn't kick it over to me, so I don't want to steal your time here. But one of the things I was gonna say was not only is it a JMO breakout game, but it was kind of a Raymond breakout game. He had
Yeah.
4 receptions for 49 yards. So I mean, with it being about 12 and a half yards of reception, I'm just like he didn't look bad either. So maybe with Campbell taking over the play calling, which I know we can get into more in depth later, but this was Raymond's best game of the year on offense.
Hmm.
Um, Tesla at least got a target. I don't know if he's got one in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
And JMO got a hell of a lot more workload than he normally does. So maybe these three guys are going to take a bigger workload moving forward, and hopefully with the weeks moving on, Tesla becomes a bigger and bigger portion of this offense. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that. And like you said, with Campbell calling the offense, we're going to kind of see a little bit of a difference as we go. And with the Khalif thing, I think that's the right way to use him. Right? He's one of those guys that can make a plays with the ball in his hand. He's not a guy that like Amon-Ra is going to route dudes up necessarily every
Correct.
play or anything like that. And he's not a JMO where he's going to burn you every play. But if you can get the ball in his hands, he can make something happen. And I mean, there was a couple of times where he caught the ball downfield, he caught the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he made a play. So I don't hate that we're using Khalif. I just don't like the fact that Tesla is really not getting anything. Like, I could understand he's not playing a lot at all, but he's not really playing at all. Like it seems like when he's out there on the field, we target him, and he gets targeted once every 4 weeks. So that kind of tells you all you need to know there. However, with that being said, speaking of Dan Campbell calling plays, that's kind of the next thing we were going to talk about. So that's a perfect segue.
Nice.
Dan Campbell took over the play calling duties on Sunday against the Commanders, and we had one of the best games we had all season offensively. Like I mentioned before, we had 546 total yards against Washington, and it seemed like Goff had one of his better games just kind of all around. 25 for 33 with 3 touchdowns as well. Really, really great game. But then, like we talked about, the run game kind of exploded. JMO kind of exploded. It seemed like people were getting the ball that normally don't. And if I'm Dan Campbell, I am not giving John Morton back play calling. I'm sorry, I'm not
No.
doing it
No.
at all. And I hope he doesn't, because at this point with where we're at, we need everything we can get, and Morton just was not getting it done the last few weeks. And I'll tell you what, he did not look very happy up in that press box, and for a good reason, because he got fired, essentially. If you think about it that way, he got soft fired because they were like, look, man, we like you. You're good at your job, but we're going to demote you, essentially. He's the offensive coordinator, but not anymore, if that makes sense. He's more of like an offensive assistant head coach,
Yeah.
if you think about it that way. So I think, again, Dan Campbell did mention that it's not like the Lynn situation a couple of years ago where he had to fire him, halfway through the season and move on. I don't think he's going to end up firing Morton. And Campbell kind of said he doesn't think he's going to fire him either. But I would not be that surprised if in the next few weeks something does happen, because if you think about it this way, right? As long as Morton is okay with not calling plays, there's no reason to just fire the guy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he wasn't calling great plays, but there's a reason he was here a few years ago, and there's a reason he's here right now. Him and Dan Campbell have a relationship. He knows what he's doing. I don't think you get rid of him because he has value. It's just not as a play caller. You know what I mean? So the only way I could see them parting ways is if, Morton is like, look, man, I didn't come here to tell you to be your assistant. With that being said, though, I am excited for what is going to happen these next few weeks with Campbell calling the plays. We're going to kind of see what Dan Campbell looks like with a lot of weapons for a long period of time. Because think about it, Dan Campbell hasn't called plays since 2021. You remember that last like 8 games or whatever it was,
Oh yeah.
where Jared Goff? It wasn't the no interceptions. That was with Johnson, but he had like the last 8 games where we won a few of the games at the end of the year, and Goff really seemed to pick it up. Now Dan Campbell has the O line, all the pieces, just everything that he could want in his cupboard to score a lot of points. So I'm personally excited to see what that looks like. And then before we move on to the Eagles game, is there anything else you want to add?
The only thing I wanted to add is looking at the box score, just trying to get some clarification, is Raymond actually had a carry for 10 yards too. So
Hmm.
just on offense, not special teams, because he's always been our punt and kick returner. He was responsible for 59 offensive yards. So I mean, tip of my cap to him. Um, and Montgomery, who, like I said, don't get me wrong, Gibbs stole the show with everything he's done. But Montgomery was averaging 4.8 yards a carry in his own right. So while I get obviously Gibbs was averaging almost 10 yards and had 2 tutties, I don't want people to forget Montgomery. Like he, playing Montgomery lets Gibbs get some rest, and he has fresh legs in the fourth quarter. I saw some people that said we should just bench Montgomery, give Gibbs 30 carries a game, and I don't think you'll get the same production out of Gibbs if you do that personally. And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on is I looked up the snap count for Tesla, And this past week against Washington, he had 20 snaps, which is 29% of the offense, and that is the most this season. So the first game of Campbell
Hmm.
calling the plays, Tesla at least was on the field the most this year. So once again, hopefully it's a building block and whatnot, but
Hmm.
um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If we, and I know you would agree with me on this, if we put up another 44 points, especially against the Eagles, I don't really care who gets targets or who gets receptions or
No.
just throw it to the open guy. And what happens happens. It's one of the blessings of having so many mouths to feed. You only got one ball, but we have so many weapons.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add a little bit onto the Tesla argument, my main issue, right, is you're giving up all this value for a player and you're saying he's for the future, right? My thing is rookie contracts are the most valuable contracts in all of sports.
Yep.
So why would we like if you have a rookie quarterback, for instance, why would you bench him for a season? You're losing a full year of what's valuable to you. So that's kind of where another argument point with the Tesla thing where he should be playing more. Because I'm to the point like, look, I've heard some stuff about he doesn't block that well and da 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 da. I don't give a shit. I don't care. He should be playing because at the end of the day, if he can't block, then we need to teach him how. And if he can't figure it out, we shouldn't have drafted him because if we're at the point where we're not going to play if you don't block, but you can't block, we can't teach you to block. What are we going to play him for then? When are we going to play him? But that it's neither here nor there. We'll
I'm
see.
curious
What
about
happens.
that one because I haven't heard that one personally, and I haven't like hotkeyed him when I see because I have seen Tesla line up in the slot here or there, but then obviously with only one target, the ball doesn't go his way, so I'm watching the ball.
Hmm.
But in times I have noticed him on the field or whatnot, I've noticed he's been at least an average blocker. So I'm like, I haven't really seen like Gibbs hitting in the backfield on like a toss or something. I'm like, oh come on, Tesla, that was your guy. Or
Hmm.
I haven't at least noticed, so it hasn't stood out to me. But at the same time, I wasn't specifically watching him to say he's been doing good or bad.
Yeah. And I
So
I mean from what I've seen it's like you said it's nothing terrible, but I just don't understand why else we wouldn't be playing him at this point because I mean, he's the only freaking wide receiver we have that's over 6'1". JMO's
uh,
6'1".
I was gonna say, I'm like, I know JMO's deceptively tall.
He's like 6'1" or 6'2", but Tesla is 6'4", and
Oh yeah, he's by far our tallest.
we got rid of Tim Patrick to the Jags. And that was our only big guy other than Laporta, really. I mean, I know JMO's over 6 foot, but he's not a big body,
Oh yeah,
receiver.
6'1". I thought he was 6'2", 6'3", but no, it says 6'1". Okay.
Yeah. Um, and anyway, moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I thought, which we won't talk about too long, I thought I thought our defense against Washington was pretty solid. Nothing special, though, honestly. We didn't really get as much pressure as I'd hoped on Mariota, and we allowed a couple big pass plays. Obviously, the run defense was great. They couldn't do anything on the ground, but we allowed a couple big pass plays that we shouldn't have, and that really is the only reason they scored 22 points, if I'm being honest with you. They shouldn't even have had that many. But moving on to the Eagles game before we, go overtime because we only got supposedly 10 minutes here, but we know we're not going to wrap it up before we're done. So, with that being said, in my opinion, against Philadelphia, obviously you have to stop the run, right? Everybody knows that. The thing is, though, Philadelphia is surprisingly low on all offensive rankings. They are middle of the pack in every way. It's kind of crazy to me as a team that's this feared that they're just kind of mid on offense. And I think, it's because they're on paper, they have a really good team. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goddard, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, probably the best O-line in football right now. They have a really good offense. It's just not really giving them a lot of yardage. I mean, they're getting points on at a decent rate, but the yardage is just not there. But however, obviously Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Tank Bigsby, they all can run the ball and run it well. So that's going to be the biggest thing for me on defense. Obviously, Like I said, we have to stop the run, but I would not be surprised if the Eagles try to attack us deep if Kirby Joseph and Terrion Arnold are not there. I would not be surprised at all. I mean, like I just said, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are two really good receivers, and honestly could be wide receiver ones on most NFL teams. So I would not be surprised if Philadelphia tries to attack us deep with all of our DB injuries. So we really just have to be ready for whatever. But with that being said, we know coming into this game, huge game for both teams. Whoever wins this game is going to have some, bragging rights for the rest of the season, and it's in Philadelphia, so it's going to be tough. But before we move on to the other side of the ball, is there anything you want to add about the Lions' defense against the Eagles?
Lions defense against the Eagles. Um, I honestly feel, and once again, I want to premise it because I know when I say it, people that are watching are just going to roll their eyes and say, of course. I feel like we actually match up pretty well against them defensively
Yeah.
against their offense. We can rush the passer. Obviously, Hurts is mobile, and we've in the past struggled with mobile quarterbacks, but we did very well against Lamar Jackson. So as long as we can bring the same kind of game plan and whatnot, obviously not identical because, as you mentioned, Philly's got the receivers that the Ravens don't. But Saquon, I mean, like between Hurts and Saquon, we're used to that with our Ravens, I would say scheme or game plan, whatever you want to call it, with Lamar and Derrick Henry.
Hmm.
So the difference is, as you mentioned, the receivers, and with us being potentially down our safety and one of our, at least another one of our corners, because I don't think Reed, even though he's back practicing, I don't think he's going to be ready for this game.
No.
I would be shocked if he is. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to attack us passing. However, if you follow me on X, I hate to say it this way, but as a football analysis, I don't respect Jalen Hurts' arm. I think that's his weak point. I fear his legs 10 times more than his arm. So, and if as long as our backups who have been extremely solid, Harper and Mallet have been very, very good and way better than I ever anticipated them. So my kudos to them. But as long as they can keep doing what they're doing, I feel like we actually have a pretty good chance because I feel like the vast majority, especially like in the Green Bay game, the vast majority of Philly's success is on their defense and keeping teams' offense limited. And they will eventually score because, as you mentioned, they have a great O-line, Saquon, AJ Brown, Smith. Like it goes on and on. They have a great offense. They just aren't clicking on all cylinders, and they haven't all year. So if our defense can keep their offense limited, even though they do have an absolute legit defense, our offense is too good to just not score. So we're going to put up a handful of points ourselves. I definitely expect us to score more than 7 like Green Bay did. That was 10-7, right?
Hmm.
Okay. I definitely expect to score more than that on them. But in terms of Philly's offense, I do feel like AJ Brown will be that like key matchup. I feel like he's the game wrecker for that offense, other than Saquon. But I think Shep's gonna obviously put a pretty good focus on stopping Saquon. Did you see the clip of AJ Brown that came out either today or yesterday? So
Hmm.
with that, if you haven't, he was playing. I think it was Madden,
Hmm.
and he flat said like, if you have me on fantasy, trade me or bench me.
Well, it's
Like,
funny because the reason that he said it was because he was playing as the Eagles and he had 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in the game he was playing in. And that's what somebody who was streaming on Twitch, and that's why it all came up because somebody was like, AJ, why don't you do this in real life, bro? And
well,
then
I
he
didn't have
was
image.
like, yeah, and he was just like, I mean, I'm also assuming that based on
Okay, I was gonna
the
say I'm like
video
I
that I
just saw the
watched.
quote. I didn't see.
Yeah, I just watched the little video of him talking about
Okay.
it. I didn't see the person ask him. I'm just assuming because he was streaming and everything, somebody must have said something about it, or he could have just thought about it on his own, I guess. But it was him basically just saying, "Yeah, man, I ain't doing this in real life. So if I'm on your fantasy, trade me, bro, because I ain't doing this."
Yeah. So, and as a AJ Brown fantasy owner, He's been on my bench for 4 weeks now. So
It's so funny too. I remember trying to trade for him in the offseason, and like the dude I was trying to trade him with was like, I need two ones. Two ones. He's a top five receiver. And I was like, not in that offense, buddy. He is not
yeah,
not doing great right now at all. With that being said, I mean against the Packers, he had 2 catches for 13 yards. So he's not even their wide receiver one. I think Devontae Smith has been their wide receiver one all season. And I think that obviously has to do with scheme and everything, but I think it's Jalen Hurts too. Like you said, his arm is not the greatest. However, with that said, moving on to the offensive side of the ball for us, um, I think this is one of those games where it's going to be on the run game. Okay, like I'm not necessarily going to sit here and say that the Eagles are going to lock down our pass game, but I'm a little bit worried about our run game this week, if I'm being honest with you, because the Eagles have a great defensive unit in general. I was going to say
yeah,
front four, and then I was like, well, they're linebacker, well, they're corner, well, they're safety. So it's like
yeah,
they're all
exactly.
really good, and they all can stop the run, they all can stop the pass. So I am a little worried about specifically Graham Glasgow this week, because he's going to have to play against Jalen Carter all day long,
Is
and
that a
that
bad
scares
matchup?
me. Well, for us,
Yeah.
for us, definitely. For them, no, that's great.
Well,
And that's the thing. Like, obviously, Ewosika is also playing left guard, so our interior O line is going to be a little rough this week. And we're playing against an Eagles D line that has, Jalen Phillips, Jalen Carter, Jordan
Davis.
Davis. Yep.
Yep.
And I cannot. I'm
Does
spacing on
Brandon
the
Graham play? I
Nolan
know he
Smith.
came out of retirement
Yeah,
for him.
Brandon Graham came out of retirement, and then Nolan Smith they
Nolan Smith,
just
first round pick. Yep.
brought back as well from injury. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but we'll see. Either way, very very talented defensive line, and then their linebackers are really good as well.
Yep. Zach
Um,
Braun. Yep.
yeah, and N'Kobe Dean's playing pretty well this year too. Probably his best football so far of his career. And then obviously the corners, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and then the safeties are
Gian
pretty good
Campbell
as
at
well.
linebacker
Yeah,
too. He
yeah,
was my draft crush.
yeah. So ha, actually, has he played yet?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know it
Yeah.
was.
He's played 2 or 3 games because I remember after 2 games
Oh
played,
shit! He's played every
um,
game.
every.
He's played one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. So other than week one.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm like, I knew I thought he only played a handful, but I remember after, I think it was 2 or 3 games, and everyone knows who watches. I'm not a big Pro Football Focus guy, but for what it's worth, Pro Football Focus had him ranked as like the number 1 or number 2 cover linebacker in the NFL
Mm-hmm.
as a rookie, and I'm just like,
Wow.
that'd be nice. Don't get me wrong. I love Anzalone and Campbell stepped up. I'll talk about that more. Well, I'm always willing to talk about Campbell, but sorry, reminiscing about that play he made out for the 2 point conversion when he absolutely stonewalled that guy and just out muscled him.
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't, I retweeted it. Check it out. But I'm sorry, I won't hijack the conversation going
No,
backwards
no
to
worries.
Washington.
Where were we? Oh,
Talking
um,
about Philly's defense.
yes. So the Lions have to sustain drives in this game. We cannot have what we had a few weeks ago on third down, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago now with against the Vikings on third down, where we literally were like 0 for 20 in the game on third down. Like that's if we do that, we're gonna lose like 40-0 against this Eagles team. We cannot play the way that we did that week. Now, I do think, like I said, the biggest thing is going to be running the ball and pressure up the middle. I'm not necessarily worried about their pass rushers that much. I know they just got Jalen Phillips, but right now they don't really have that true like elite number one guy like we do in Hutchinson, which we also don't have that like. I mean, I guess Muhammad's been playing like a true number two this year, but they have a lot more depth than we do in terms of
Yep,
pass rushers.
absolutely.
So I think we kind of have that advantage in that way, but they have the advantage where they can kind of switched up a little bit more on us.
Plus, they have the
However,
interior pressure from Carter.
exactly, and that is the biggest thing this week is interior pressure, and of course we're facing probably a top five defensive tackle in the league right now at rushing the
Easily.
passer. So my thing is we have to play smart, we have to play tough to beat this team, and I think we will. I do. I think with Dan Campbell playing or calling plays. I think with getting our ass whooped by the Vikings a few weeks ago, And then, of course, the Packers game, I think, is still in the back of these guys' heads. Like, man, we really looked rough on the road in week one. So I do think the Lions are going to come out and they're going to handle business. And I think it's going to be something like 27-23. I could even see a lower scoring game. It just depends on, how the run game goes for both sides. Because think about it, like we both have good run defenses. So I could see a game where we both air it out a little bit more. Especially because, like I said before, our DBs are going to be injured or are likely to be injured. However, I do think we go to Lincoln Financial and come out with a win. What are your thoughts?
I like the matchup.
Oh, shoot. Think we lost you, James. Well, with that being said, for
For
now,
the Lions, to
oh,
be honest. Like I said, I
there he
do.
is. Oh, maybe, maybe not. Okay, well, with that being said, I will continue with our games of the week until he is back. Okay,
I
and
was
you're
gonna
back.
say, I'm like, I was talking and then you were frozen on my screen. I'm like, whenever you freeze, I know I'm the one freezing. So then I'm just like, well, all right, sorry. And it's funny too because I heard everything you said, and you're like, "Ian, what do you think about it?" But whatever. Sorry, guys. I hate my internet. I pay way too much for this bad connection. But I do like the matchup for the Lions, and it's kind of weird to say because I do think the Eagles are a top five team in the entire NFL. I do think four of the top five teams overall in the league play each other this week, which we will talk about when we get to the games of the week here, because obviously there's kind of a no doubter looming in addition to our own game. But whether it's because, like I said, it's a close game. As you mentioned, you have it Lions by four. I can absolutely see the Lions winning. I absolutely can. I am curious because I have not seen an update on Quinton Mitchell because I know he went down in the game last week. I know Lane Johnson went down, but he came back. I don't know if Mitchell came back or not. Um, but I know Lane Johnson's probably not playing 100%. Granted, this late in the season, I don't know if anyone's 100%. Probably not. Um, but whether it is via what's actually going to happen slash what I actually think, or if I'm just going to try to lean on I'll just say events of the past. I don't want to say it out loud, but if you watch the show weekly, you'll know. I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game. Um and I will say I think it's going to be lower scoring. I'll say 21-17 Eagles. But we'll see. We'll see.
It's funny too because those who have watched the show should definitely know what we're referencing right now.
We'll
So
see.
we're just gonna move on with that being
Yeah.
said because we can't really say too much else.
Yeah, I cannot.
But with that being said, our my games of the week this week, I have Tampa Bay at Buffalo, which I have this because Buffalo is coming off of a rough loss against Miami. Josh Allen seems to be, I don't know if he's in his own head or if he's not in his own head. I don't know what's going on with him, but he was just off all game. And it also seemed like on the sideline he was just kind of not with it necessarily. So I think this is a big game because I believe both teams, maybe not reeling, but both teams are kind of, um, because I mean the Niners did win, or I'm sorry, they lost. That's my bad. So they're both reeling off of losses. The Bucks lost to the Patriots last week. So I see this as two quarterbacks that are not playing their best football right now. Baker Mayfield specifically. I know Josh Allen's still pretty much playing up to par, but I see this as two really good teams, NFC AFC battle. And it should be a really good game. I mean, I just feel like the way that the Buccaneers rushing defense is with how the Bills rushing offense is. It's a really good matchup there. Probably going to force the Bills to throw it a little bit more, which helps the Bucks. And then on the other side, the Bucks passing offense is really good. So we could see a pretty fun game. Which I'm not tooting my own horn, but I am. All I'm gonna say is I've been pretty on point with these games of the week all season. It feels like, but especially last week, the Indianapolis Atlanta game. I don't know if many people thought that that was going to be a game of the week, but it turned out to be one of the better games all week. With Jonathan Taylor having like 250 rushing yards or something crazy, 220 something I think it actually was. But either way, just wanted to give myself a small pat on the back for that. And then my second one, which we can, because we have the same one here, we can kind of uh, talk about that. Seattle at LA Rams. So obviously, this is an NFC West matchup. As we all know, they're both really good teams. The Rams, honestly, Matthew Stafford has my vote for MVP right now.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just playing better football than really most quarterbacks. Obviously, Goff, I think, is up there too. But Stafford's just on another level right now. I also think um, with how the Rams pass rush has been, we could see the Seattle Seahawks finally falter. It seems like they've just been firing on all cylinders offensively for the past few weeks. So I think I again I don't really I'm not sure who wins this game, but I just know it's going to be a good one. If I had to bet, I would probably say the Rams just simply for the matchups. But I could see either team pulling this out. But with that being said, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you mentioned, this was the other game I was kind of alluding to where I think both of these teams are also top five teams in the league. I feel like even though they're in the same division, it's kind of like Minnesota and Detroit from last year. Like they had the two best records in the NFC, but obviously only one can win the division. I believe it is. I wish I had the stat in front of me. I screenshot it for the show, and unfortunately, it's just not in front of me. It's over the last 4 or 5 weeks, one of the two. Stafford has 20 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. So talking about Stafford for MVP, um, yeah, like at this point in time, as long as he doesn't collapse, I think it's his. Obviously, we have several weeks to go here, but he has been playing the best football of his life. So, I mean, good on him. And this will be a very entertaining game. I don't know many, kind of like the Colts. I don't know many that had the Seahawks being this good this year, but um, Jackson Smith and Jigma has been just absolutely lighting up the league. He's looking like Calvin, dare I say. I mean, he's already at over 1,000 yards receiving. The only receiver in the league with 1,000 yards receiving. And this is just going to be a hell of a football matchup. So I think between Seattle and the Rams, and like I said, the Lions and the Eagles, we'll see four of the top five teams in the entire NFL go at it. Um, I have the Rams winning this as well, just because it's with as good as the Seahawks are playing, and with as good as Jackson Smith and Jigma has been, you can't really I don't want to say beat the Rams because they're not undefeated, but the way Stafford is playing at such a high level, mixed in with, as you mentioned, their pass rush with Verse and Frisk and Young, and they're they're just kind of a very well-rounded team right now. And right now, the way they're rolling, I would pick them versus anyone at this moment.
Yeah, and I can't necessarily disagree with that. One thing I want to say before we wrap this show up, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like you said, is the only receiver with 1,000 yards right now, right?
Yep.
He has 1,041 yards. Number two, I think we could all guess who this guy is. Jamar Chase has
Oh, say Justin
830.
Jefferson.
Yeah. I feel like Justin Jefferson's fallen off. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, I just think at this point, he's not the number one receiver in the league anymore. I feel like the last like 3 years, it was like him and Jamar, but it
Yeah.
was him for the most part. You know, it felt like it was him. Now I don't think it's really that close. I feel like Justin Jefferson just and a lot of anyway. This isn't a small aside, but I've seen a lot of Vikings fans on Twitter, and I'm friends with a Vikings fan, and they're talking about trading him. That's where they're at with
Oh,
him. They're
damn.
like,
Okay.
dude, he last week. I can't remember who they played, but JJ McCarthy threw an interception, right?
Yep.
But it really shouldn't have been an interception because what happened was it might have been a medicine ball. Okay, it might not have been a great throw, but Justin Jefferson just decided to not try to catch it. That's all that happened. Like literally, you watch Justin Jefferson. He looks at the ball like he's looking back. He looks at the safety, and then he just does that, and the safety picks it off. And I've seen multiple Vikings fans talk about that specific play and essentially say this: this is who Justin Jefferson is. We've seen this time and time again. Trade his ass. We want him out of town. We're paying him too much, and he's not doing what he needs to do. So anyway, small aside, but the crazy thing that I thought about Jackson Smith and Jigba is he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth in receptions. He is first in yards by almost 300 yards, and he is fifth in receptions. These are the guys who have more catches than him. Okay, JSN 63 catches for 1,041 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 64 catches for 693 yards. Puka Nacua, 66 catches for 775 yards. And Christian McCaffrey, 69 catches, for 692 yards. So he's got 69 twice. That's lit. Okay. Anyway, point is, Jamar Chase, also 76 catches, 831 yards. So he has 13 less catches than Jamar Chase and 200 and some odd yards more. I'm just saying JSN is having one of those seasons that is going to go down in history, and people are not talking about it enough. I feel like people were talking about Puka Nacua more in the first like 4 games than they are right now about Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to mention him, and I'm just like JSN. Like I said, I'm like I know, especially for Detroit fans, I know a lot of people that only watch the Lions, and then once the Lions game is done, they turn it off. They don't watch the 4 o'clock games or Sunday night, Monday night, etc., etc. That's why I compared him to Calvin Johnson, because I'm just like, I know after like years past in reputation, he hasn't been that guy all the time in his career, but this year in the here and now, he's the man in the league. Like he is the receiver. And I mean, I didn't see it coming, but I mean, this is what's in front of us, so
Yeah, and I think too, last thing I'll say about it before we wrap the show up is Sam Darnold is not getting his due either. I feel like a lot of people are like, well, he's just gonna shit the bed. He's got like my friend, my Vikings fan friend was over here over the weekend, and he was like, honestly, the Seahawks they look great, but I don't give a fuck because Sam Darnold he's gonna shit down his leg as soon as any pressure's put on him, and it's like, dude, you guys were fucking 14-3 last year with him. With the same exact team you have right now, basically. I mean, not same exact.
I got screenshots of Vikings fans saying he's MVP last year. So
right, and I'm saying like, I get not liking Sam Darnold, but like at this point, you got to respect it, man. You got to respect it.
Absolutely. He reminds me a lot of, and I know it's going to sound maybe a little weird because the last couple games haven't been his best, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield. Like he's been in the league for a long time, and people kind of wrote him off, and now he's really kind of found his stride. So like I know Baker the last couple weeks hasn't been great, but prior to that, he's had a very good last couple seasons.
Oh yeah.
And Darnold's this is now year 2. Like he looked good with the Vikings, and I'll be the first to tell you. I thought he was a product of his environment. I thought with Hockenson, Jefferson, Addison, Aaron Jones running, so defenses had to respect the run game. I'm like, he's not going to do anything once you send him to a team like Seattle. Well, I admit when I'm wrong, and he's made JSN look better than ever. I mean, they got rid of Lockett, who I thought was a pretty solid receiver, and not only did they not skip a beat, they got even better as a whole. And they got a nice 2 running back tandem too, so good job, I almost said Aaron Donald, Sam Darnold.
Good job, Aaron Donald. It's
Whatever
like
you're
somehow,
doing, I'm sure you're doing awesome out there.
somehow him making that play against the Bengals then turned into the Seahawks getting Jackson Smith and Jigba, which honestly, there might be some weird way that you could figure that out. But with that being said, though, that's going to be it for this show. As always, we appreciate you guys for watching. Link is in the description for Fanatics. Check it out. Get your jerseys, your memorabilia, whatever you want. They got it and probably on sale. So if you're filling up your man cave, it's the perfect place to get it. Click the link in the description. But with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys for watching. We will see you next week.